Give me a break.
First off, I'd like to welcome everybody to this fire program tonight. One thing I want to ask first is that if you have your cell phone on you, if you please put it on vibrate. We don't want to be part of your conversation, and I'm sure you don't want us to be part of yours. So the other thing is, this is being put on by the Schuylkill County Historical Society. So we knew that we'd get a really good turnout, so we asked the Humane to join us and let us use their hall. So please be kind to the bar and see what we can do. The Society has a lot of different programs. We work basically on membership. We're trying to reach 1,000 members. We're very close, so if you're not a member and you like our programming, please join up. You can do that on our webpage, or we have the forms here tonight. We did pass a paper out that tells you about the different programming that will be going on in the future. So, and everybody's here to see Mike and Mike, so they don't want to hear me sit here and talk. So I'd like you to welcome both Mike Kitsock and Mike Glore. Mike Kitsock is a veteran volunteer firefighter. He is the president of the Norwegian Township. He also is an instructor for the PA State Fire Academy. And he is the founder and past president of the Schuylkill Historical Fire Society, which was formed in 1991. And we also have Mike Glore, who is the deputy fire chief of the city of Reading, who is also a volunteer firefighter here at the city, and he also is a member of the Fire Society. So without further ado, let's welcome Mike and Mike.
Good evening. Welcome to the program tonight. Mike and I are very excited about it. Mike actually spearheaded this. He floated the idea last year for the program. Oh, actually, Joanne did. I'm sorry, Joanne. But the tremendous amount of research for it. It really came together well. We hope you enjoy it. Some housekeeping stuff if you haven't already seen. The restrooms are off to my left against this wall, and of course, cash bar tonight. Feel free, enjoy yourselves. And Mike and I are also going to lighten your wallets a little bit tonight. If you had seen coming in, we have the new Schuylkill County Fire and Emergency Services History Book. We actually lucked out. The publication date was originally March 25th. Primarily because of spring thaw in Allentown early in April this year, they pushed our publication date up, and the books arrived just after March 5th. So they're available. Again, it was at least a 1 to 2 year project in assembling everything. It came together very well. We think you'll enjoy the stories that are contained. Some of them you'll be familiar with, some you may not, and they're usually the ones that are the aha moment. Gee, I never knew that, and they're the kind of things that we enjoy as we go through programs like this. In addition, you've seen the signs, I'm sure. Last evening we launched a capital campaign. The Humane and Phoenix Fire Companies, as I'm sure most everyone here has heard, are consolidating into one new organization, the Pottsville Fire Company #1. In order to accomplish the physical plant move, we're going to expand the Humane Firehouse to accommodate the Phoenix area ladder truck. With that, we're looking to raise about $500,000 through a capital campaign. So if you're so inclined, there's a boot on the front table. If you'd like to make a donation toward that, both companies, soon to be one, would certainly appreciate it. We thank you for your support. Before I give it to Mike to crank things up, I'll offer the first disclaimer of the night. With family surnames of Glore and Bonchock, it's pretty clear that any Irish heritage is negligible. So we want to talk about green fire engines or fire engines, I'm all about it. We want to talk Irish heritage, I'll do the best I can. With that, I'll turn it over to Mike.
With a last name Kitsock, I don't do much better. And my mom was a Yodeski, but I have one claim to Irish background here. I grew up in the Irish neighborhood on Water Street in Mahoney Plain, little town. and the kitsocks and the last chicks were the bookends. And would you like to know who my neighbors were? Okay, would you like to know who my neighbors were? Okay, there was Finnegan, Flanagan, Mulligan 2, O'Connor, O'Connell, O'Malley, O'Toole, McCarthy, Macaulay, McCunnan, McLean. As I grew up, I remembered their names. Hold on to the second verse. Kerrigan, Sullivan, Halligan 2, McCann, McCabe, McGrew, and McCoog. Doherty, Flaherty, Flynn, and Wynn, these were the people I knew as my friends. I heard it was supposed to be somewhat entertaining tonight, so that might, if you're easily entertained, that might be a little start. Okay, shall we, yeah. Let me mention here, folks, the presentation is in 3 parts. Each part maybe about 15 minutes or so. When we organized this, we wanted to find out why the Irish, or so many, came to Schuylkill County. That we took for part 1. Part 2, we took a look at companies that were 80, 90 to 100% Irish organizers. So we took a look at those, not to say that they were not instrumental in other fire companies of the county, but these were the main ones, led by the Irish there. And then as a surprise for part 3, we're going to give you a tour of an Irish fire company in Schuylkill County, and we'll think you will enjoy the heritage that you see that that fire company has preserved. So that's our program for this evening. Let's get the Irish into Schuylkill County here. Earliest Irish in Schuylkill County, early 1920s. Where did they end up? Pottsville. How do we know that? Well, we were going to comment on that with the fire company coming up. And one picture you will see, and I'll let Mike comment more about that in the back, of this very, very early Irish fire company. But also, if you're a historian, there is one very interesting block in Pottsville. Just go over a couple blocks from Mahantongo Street, St. Patrick's Church, Irish Church, 1828. What is it, 8 inches away? The Youngling Brewery, 1829. One block, and it's probably the only block in the United States where there's a church and a brewery right next to each other, getting ready to celebrate 200 years of history. So that in itself is remarkable. Mike, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, everyone is probably familiar. In most communities, you've had those enclaves, right? Of different ethnicities, different nationalities. In Pottsville, right up the street here, a location that kept the Pottsville Fire Department busy for generations. They referred to it as the Irish Flats. It was Dunn's Flats. They were essentially huge railroad-style apartment buildings that just sat up and across from the Schuylkill County Courthouse and Schuylkill County Prison. So you see that throughout. And again, as Mike said, they congregated in, of course, the population centers for the most part at the time. And that's where Mike has some interesting anecdotes about how they actually arrived here from the coal barons and such.
Okay. Some immigration statistics. 1820 to 1860, about 1/3 of all immigrants, Irish. Now, this is a time when slaves were coming into the United States as well, in the South. So, if you think they were riding over on the U.S. Carpathia or ships that looked like the Titanic, many of the slave ships would drop their slaves off, do a quick run to Ireland, and bring the Irish over here. So let's just say accommodations weren't too good in that regard. The big wave, 1845 to 1850, 500,000 came to the United States. If anyone knows a little bit about Irish history, the potato famine. this was basically a one-crop country. They had some other industries, linen, Irish linen, very famous for that, but that was dependent upon cotton from the south, and that varied year by year. When the potato crop failed, and these were tenant farmers, the poverty and disease began. Anything you want to add to that, Mike?
Yeah, it's interesting when we put these programs together, you find that you learn a great deal that you hadn't known before. And a term that I had a great deal of difficulty pronouncing, Phytophthora infestis, potato fungus. It's actually a water mold, and that's essentially what infected the potato crop. So that's the scientific name of what actually triggered a lot of this that we're discussing.
Let's keep it. Oh, where's the clicker? Okay, let me get a little more high tech here. Okay, why they departed the Emerald Isle. People like to go to Ireland to visit. These people had an expression, anywhere is better than here at that time. The potato famine, which we just referenced, led to dire disease and poverty. They were tenant farmers. Guess what? The landowners wanted their money. The crops weren't bringing in any money. They would increase the rent on the farmland. The owners, most of the owners were English, Welsh, Scottish. They were Protestant. Most of the Irish farmers were Catholic. So you had a religious conflict there. The poor Irish had no political power, no autonomy whatsoever. So the expression, anywhere is better than here, is sadly true. Let's get them over to the United States. Now, if you're thinking that the Goodwill welcome wagon was waiting for them at the door, not the case. Who was here before they were? You had the English, Scottish, Welsh, Germans, and here come the Irish. We found this picture. This is a ship loaded with the poorhouse from Galway Bay, overloaded, and coming into New York Harbor. Let's see who's going to meet them in the New York Harbor. A rowboat loaded with dynamite. So you can see how welcome the Irish were in coming. Anything you want to add to that, Mike?
No, and as we'll talk about a little bit later, as the Irish came over, and because of the discrimination they faced, you'll see that many of them were driven in directions of probably the most dangerous jobs in the country at the time. And we'll talk about that a little more.
When we get them to Schuylkill County, guess what? The mining communities is where they settled. In the cities, many of them eventually became police officers and firefighters. They took the toughest job because they can prove to others that they were of value. And they can be valuable citizens in this country. That sign was all too typical, and more what they encountered here. Next one was an interesting political cartoon. The melting pot of America, with Mother Liberty there. We see all these countries represented. Guess who doesn't fit in? There he is up there, probably drunk, complaining, with the knife, flag, waving his flag. And tell them about the picture.
Yeah, the caricature of the face was typical of what you've seen in these type political cartoons of this era. They made them very sinister, almost animal-like, just to demean them and essentially dehumanize them. So again, this is essentially what they faced coming to America.
The term is simian. Simian is a Latin word for monkey. They gave them monkey faces to make them subhuman, to make sure. And that, we're not talking just in the big cities here. They had their battles here with the Miners' Journal in particular in Schuylkill County. Now, the ones who did get in, and many times they refer to their ship as the coffin ships, the ones that did get to Ellis Island and in New York City, they were greeted. Free railroad ticket to Schuylkill County. And we can give you work, we can give you houses, and you'll have religious freedom. The work in the mines. The houses, the company houses. Mahanoy Township, outside surrounding Monterey City, had over 60 patch towns, coal patches. All of those associated with the coal company. And when the wind blew in the company houses, the windows rattled. And we're going to get them a job. Let's put them to work in the mines. 1840s, 1850s when they came. How about 6 days a week, not 5? How about 10 to 12 hours a day in the mines? And we even have jobs for your children. Let them pick slate for 10, 12 hours a day till their fingers would bleed. Then, come payday. They got paid, many of them got paid in script. You know what script is? Monopoly money. It was good at the company store. And if you think the company store was Walmart, with their motto, save money, live better, it was the opposite. Pay more and live worse was pretty much so. So we got them working in the mines. You almost have, can't get out of poverty there. It was stacked against them. And all of a sudden, a song keeps coming into my head. Now, this is supposed to be entertaining here for a moment, and I'm going to date myself, but I think some of you might remember this song here. Let me see here for a moment. How many of you remember the Tennessee Ernie Ford song, 16 Tons? Okay, we're going to try something here to keep that entertainment mode in here. Let's try the first verse of 16 Tons. Are you ready? You load 16 ton, what do you get? Another day older and deeper in debt. St. Peter, don't you call me, 'cause I can't go. I owe my soul to the company store. I'll quit while I'm ahead. Well, somebody clapped anyway. Thank you, Joanne. Okay. Now, take a look. Where did large population settle? Tell them about those towns there, Mike.
Yeah, again, in that era, it was more of the population centers to which they gravitated. And then eventually, as Mike said, some of the patch towns began to develop that were uniquely company towns. So the patch towns were essentially directly related to the mining industry that was close by. But Pottsville was one of the early larger settlements. Of course, everyone probably knows Ordsburg was the original county seat, eventually moved to Pottsville. But the other Irish settlements are here, and you recognize a lot of them, particularly in the strong mining communities, Cass Township, Minersville, those of that nature, north of the mountain, so to speak, that developed and really had strong Irish populations.
Yeah, I don't know of anyone in the little town of Lost Creek who is not Irish, except for maybe Ricky Examitis. Sorry, Ricky. On that, but in my own town, heavily Irish on that as well. But let's get to, we got them into Schuylkill County. Let's pick it up with part 2. Mike, tell them about the first predominantly Irish fire company.
Interestingly, this is one that most people are not familiar with. The Schuylkill Hydraulic Fire Company was identified as the first Irish fire company in the region and in Pottsville, largely due to the nature of the membership of Irish descent. What's important to know as well as we go through this, the first recognized Irish fire company in America was the Hibernia Engine Company from Philadelphia in 1752. They were a hand engine company. I mention that because Hibernia is going to play a part in the later history of the Schuylkill Hydraulic and Fire Company. Schuylkill Hydraulics were formed in 1829, first organized in 1829, as was the Humane Fire Company of Pottsville, which was originally the Pottsville Fire Company. They were both recognized by the borough of Pottsville in 1830. Their American Agnew hand engine was housed by the old Borough Hall, which was the site of the Schuylkill County Historical Society currently at Race and Center Streets. On weekends, because the fire company met right behind the jail, the Drolleys, as they were known, would be tired of the prisoners that they'd bring in on the weekend nights, who were drunk, disorderly, and of course all they do was create such a disturbance in the jail cells next to the fire company meeting place to cause a ruckus. So the Drolleys let them go. They just opened the cells up and off they went, and the firemen went back to their business. So it's interesting how that all changes over the years and what they've done as things progressed. But interestingly, yes. Oh, interestingly, take that. Go. Go ahead. Go ahead. You can walk through. Go ahead. Go ahead.
That's okay.
We talk about discrimination and what the Irish faced. The Schuylkill Hydraulic and Fire Company admitted the first African-American member to the Pottsville Fire Department in 1848. So that's pretty interesting. Now, there was one stipulation. He was not allowed to draw the engine. He could participate in all other company activities, but for whatever reason, he was not allowed to actually draw the engine. So I guess that was the price they paid at that point. Now, the Schuylkill Hydraulic and Fire Company, the reason most people are not familiar with the organization is at the time of the Civil War, it ceased to exist. To a man, the Drolleys enlisted in service of the Union as part of Lincoln's first defenders when the Civil War broke out. So the company essentially dissolved. The hand engines were turned over to the borough for operation however they saw fit, and the company went off to war. After the Civil War, in 1867, the company began to reorganize. And this is where it becomes particularly interesting. The choices of names, they narrowed down to 3. Phoenix, Emmett, and Hibernia. And eventually they settled on Phoenix. So the Irish heritage of the Phoenix Fire Company extended beyond that to a point in 1889, after the firehouse that we know on East Norwegian Street was built in 1885. In 1889, the company ordered a new LaFrance Hayes Tillard aerial ladder truck, 65-foot aerial ladder. What most people don't know, and it's exemplified tonight, the truck was green to celebrate the Irish heritage. Even though the Phoenix was one of the, what they call the Big Four in Pottsville. Good Intent, Phoenix, American Hose, and Humane, first 4 fire companies. The Big Four were, at one time, the only companies permitted to have red fire apparatus in Pottsville. The Phoenix predated that with a green ladder truck. Interestingly, there's a painting of the truck from 1889. So it's pretty old today, 135 years old. Was located in the ceiling of the second floor of the Phoenix Firehouse, and it was a disaster. It was covered in dust, covered in drywall dust. It was just a mess. The painting itself was ripped. It was folded. It would almost bring you to tears knowing how old it was. But thanks to some handiwork by Mrs. Glore, she was able to enact some repairs to it, cleaned it up, and if anybody wants to see what that 1889 Hayes looked like with a 3-horse hitch, it's on the back of the shuffleboard table right now if you want to take a look at it. In its original frame. So that's the 135-year-old painting of Phoenix's green Tillard aerial ladder truck. Yep.
Go up to 1867. We're going to go north of the mountain, Illinois City. Growing community, mining community,
and a community of several thousand people, yet no fire service, no fire protection organized. First Fire Company, Humane Steam Fire Company #1, all Irish. They formed that in 1867, and they truly were #1. I counted over 100 members in that early photo. And some of you may be old enough to remember they used to march in the Schuylkill County Parade with their heavy woolen coats on, which wasn't bad when the conventions were in October. When they were moved to August, that was a different problem there. And you want to take this incident, Mike?
Sure.
Oh.
Here's how violent these interactions could become. On October 31st, 1874, at Railroad and Main Streets in Monterey City, the fire department was summoned for a stable fire. A fight developed between the Irish and non-Irish fire companies in town. William Major, who was a brother of the foreman, George Major, and a Sullivan of the Humane Fire Company, became embroiled in a fist fight. The Chief Burgess, who was the foreman of the Citizens Fire Company, attempted to restore order to the entire scene. Very quickly, shots rang out, and he fell mortally wounded on the fire scene. An individual named Daniel Doherty was initially accused of the crime. However, he was acquitted at trial in Lebanon County. It was later learned, much later learned, that an individual named McCann actually fired the fatal shot. So this is a great example of the hostility that existed, ethnic hostility in the region at the time. And again, we're deep in the Molly Maguire era here too. I'm sure you guys all realize that as well. So there are other political forces and other socioeconomic forces that were playing into this as well. But this is actually a map of Miami City during the Molly Maguire days, and the area with the red star, if you can see it, is where the incident actually took place. And you guys familiar, you can probably picture it today, what that intersection looks like.
The value of being the first company to put water on the fire. And if that company would have been the Irish company, that would have been an eye-opening moment. And that wasn't going to happen as far as Mr. Major was concerned. And we'll move on from that particular point. And there are two engines today, CF Mac, and their newer engine here, KME.
Pardon? Crimson.
Oh, Crimson, yes.
Crimson.
Okay, on that, displaying some of their Irish heritage. And on the back of the Crimson, in Gaelic, there is an inscription. I'm not even going to try to pronounce it. But you can imagine now, the Irish came over to America speaking Gaelic and then going to church to a Latin Mass. I don't know how many of you remember the Latin Masses. Yeah. Okay, on that, it took a while to get them to good English here. The inscription is, the Irish are a source of safety and welfare. It is a pretty good translation of that in Gaelic. Minersville, go ahead.
Independent Minersville. Most are familiar, and this is probably a great example of the Irish pride and the Gaelic symbol that they adopted on their 1987 Seagrave pumper on the door emblem. Very impressive, very impressive. And of course, on their GMC Hirsch pumper, you can see the guys dressed Brothers of the Brush era. Some may remember that, know the history. But those who may or may not know, it's Alec Donazio, Mike Werchik Jr., Richie Donlin in the driver's seat. Many are familiar with Rich over the years. John Alexa and Joe Koschel on the end. So they're the representatives of the Independent Hose Company. And again, very strong Irish heritage that they displayed proudly on their company patch at the time. And again, they have consolidated and now part of Minersville Fire Rescue.
Okay. This was a shocker.
This was a ringer.
This was unexpected. Totally. And we have Mike Wolf here with us tonight as proof. Why wouldn't we consider the citizens of Palo Alto an Irish fire company? Probably because of all the, I'll call what my friend Al Bright used to call Italians living over there. On that. And not, this was a shocker until you read the names. And you see O'Connell, you see Kennedy, another O'Connell, you see a Donlin, a Brennan. That was an Irish organized fire company. Mike, do you want to add to that? Okay.
Yeah, Mike, we have to give credit, Mike. He said, take a look at the names on this, see what you think. And that kind of told the tale for us.
I think that was the original charter.
Is that what it was? Yeah.
Okay. All right on that. And let's go north of the mountain here. That seems to be where the excitement is. Now, we talk about a fire in our book where 67 buildings burned to the ground on Memorial Day in Monterey City, 1945. 400 homes in Shenandoah destroyed. 2 fire companies only. They could not stop it. Most of the homes destroyed, west side of town, the Irish neighborhood. So what are we going to do about that? This is what we're going to do about it. Out of the ashes of that fire came the phoenix, the mythical phoenix bird rising from the ashes, and the Phoenix Fire Company was formed. And on its roof today is the phoenix bird, right there. And that was pretty much an all-Irish fire company. We're going to take a closer look at that coming up shortly. Mike, do you want to add to that?
No, as Mike said, we'll cover this in detail and also show a very important artifact from this time period that relates to the other Irish fire company from Pottsville.
And I understand this other ornament, and 19th century had a lot of interesting ornaments, but I believe that was a flagpole. Very nice architecture, and that was what came out of the ashes of that fire. Any fire company that preserves its antique pieces is take a look. Humane. There's another one, Seagrave anniversary model, north of the mountain there, and that has been kept in operating condition for 71 years. So how's that for pride? And one thing to take a look at while we're in this picture, look at the hardwood floors. Very, very few fire companies have hardwood floors for their apparatus. Anything you want to add there, Mike?
No, it's, as Mike mentioned, its cousin is sitting out front here if anybody would like to take a closer look. Humane's 1953 Seagrave.
Okay, 1898. Mike, you want to take the rescue here?
Yeah, this was interesting too. This is one that I hadn't known about. But in looking for some anecdotes, because again, I wasn't aware of the Irish history involved here, I turned to Phoenix Fire Company Secretary Tommy Schaefer, who informed me that the hookies, St. Patty's Day parties of the 50s and 60s were legendary and really celebrated their Irish heritage, which was something I hadn't known. Again, this is one of the fire companies that I wasn't familiar with such a strong Irish heritage. And again, the hookies still exist today in St. Clair, very strong company, and actually in the same building that exists here.
Rangers of Girardville. 1911, that would be pre-Frank Zangari days. some Italians in there. Yeah, that was an Irish, strong Irish neighborhood. If any of you ever made the St. Patrick's Day Parade in Gerardville, many of them were legendary. And strong Irish heritage in Gerardville. And I will point out to you right now, we have one of their members right here, and historian of Irish history, Mr. Joe Wayne, and proprietor of the Hibernian House and long-term member of the Rangers Host Company in Gerardville.
And Joe, while you're here, I'll look at you and confirm something. Question always arose where the red, white, and blue came from on the apparatus. And my understanding is that the World War I Veterans Organization met at the Rangers Hose Company. And this was painted in 1972 to honor the World War I veterans who met there. So that's something that's unique that I hadn't known until we actually started researching some of this.
Let's go to the east end of the county. Tamaqua. East End Fire Company in Tamaqua, organized 1916. They were the Irish answer to the Irish fire companies in the eastern section of the county. And strong company to this day. Anything you want to add to that, Mike?
No, just one thing I will add, and this is just a side note. The American LaFrance pumper pictured here replaced one in which two firefighters were killed in a rollover accident just outside of Delano back in 41, I believe, 41.
And we have to get to the Irish Valley here. They were a little late getting organized. I guess they were relying on Minersville all those years. But we got the Clover. And Clover organized 1938. Interesting butterfly grill Hahn.
They started out right with a Hahn pumper in 1941, I will say that.
Yep, on there. And their green pumper today displaying their Irish heritage. And if you have any question on the Irish heritage in that part of Schuylkill County, all you have to do is walk through the cemetery of St. Kieran's and take a look at every Irishman from that area buried in that cemetery. I think we're ready to focus in on, go back to one company here for a little tour. And we decided on this tour because most people have no clue on what is inside those doors. We are going to Phoenix Fire Company in Shenandoah. Tell them about that picture, Mike.
Yeah, particularly for the guys from the Phoenix. This is the 1969 Six-County Convention Parade in Pottsville. And as you can see, it marched up current Route 61, Claude Aylord Boulevard. That's what's pictured here, which is pretty interesting. The railroad tracks, again, all the railroad warehouses, the railroad station have already been demolished, but the tracks still exist. So that's a pretty interesting background for the picture itself of the marching unit from the Phoenix.
Oh, is that you, Tom, driving the Secret? Okay. Returning to the Phoenix here in Shenandoah. Not only do they provide fire protection for the community for well over 100 years, with volunteers, they ran the ambulance service for decades. And I'm going to tell you one little secret about the Phoenix, and your answer is no, I do not believe you. So I'm giving you the answer right now. An Irish fire company that did not have a bar. An Irish fire company that did not have a bar. No, I don't believe you. They did not want to be known as the Drunken Irish Fire Company. They took a higher plane. That was so rare, and they did that for decades until Tom got in and a few of the others, and then they opened a little bar downstairs. But for decades, that fire company, Irish company, did not allow alcohol in their company, so they would not be known as a drunken Irish fire company. And that is certainly walking a higher plane in my book. Let's get inside here. Oh boy. Any fire historians here? There it is. Original Gamewell fire alarm indicator and house bell still in service today. The alarm board, this goes back to the late 1800s, folks. Now you tell me something from the late 1800s still in operation today. That's how well made they were. And that's part of the heritage of this company. This you will see as one of several pictures of a company hero, John F. Kennedy, in that company. Is that a surprise? Okay. Ornamental plaster. You take a look at the PFC. Classy. A nice touch, architectural touch throughout their building. After the Second World War, a local artist from Shenandoah by the name of Plopper, I don't know his first name, somebody know, Leo Plopper, painted this by hand of the 4 branches of the service and honored all the men of that fire company who served in the armed forces. And we'll take a closer look at some of those names. Any doubt this is an Irish company? O'Neill, McLean, Campbell. We got Burke, O'Brien, Hughes, Feely, Cantwell, Brennan, Farrell. But we do have...
Yeah, we want to know who signed Zalewski's application.
Just looking at intermarriage there. I bet he married the daughter of the president of the fire company or something there. They let him in. But interesting on that. But what a nice way to honor serving your country. And as Mike mentioned, answering a higher call. When President Lincoln called for soldiers to defend the Capitol, it was the firefighters from Schuylkill County who were amongst the first to answer that call. They closed the fire companies because they were answering a higher call. And that to me is pretty darn special. Anything else on that, Mike? Oh boy. Now we got a little mystery here for you folks. We have one room in the back, and we have 5 doorways, all leading to the same room. And they're big doorways. Anybody figure it out? Back of the fire company was this stable. And can we figure out how many horses? Up to 5 horses. And that feature is still in that fire company today. And again, take a look at the beautiful hardwood floors, and of course the walls are green. Anything you want to add?
I'm going to guess, and I don't know. Why 5 horses? Wild guess. 2 for a chemical wagon, 3 for a steamer? Maybe? I don't know. I'm just guessing.
Okay, you have to go back in those minutes a little further there, Tom. Yeah. And these horses, in the horse-drawn era, they had to make money for the fire company. So they would be out delivering coal and pulling wagons around. And then when the fire alarm went off, they were trained to run back to the station to get hitched to the fire equipment. I have been in several hundred fire companies. I can count on one hand this unique feature. Stained glass light at the bottom of the stairwell. When it is turned on, meaning in session, keep your mouth shut downstairs. Did I get that right, Tom? Okay. Nice feature, though, of the fire company meeting in session there. And take a look at the beautiful wainscoting going up those stairs. Just some things that, and ornamental pressed tin ceilings. Now, I'm going to show you the meeting room, and the correct emotional response is an ooh, ah. Now, do we need to rehearse that? Okay, let's see. Let's get up to the meeting room. Beautiful meeting room. Beautiful meeting room. Any comments, Mike, on that?
Yeah, my first question when Mike and I started going through the picture was, who conducts the meeting? The Pope? That is one heck of a chair you got for the president. Wow.
Probably the biggest picture I've ever seen of John F. Kennedy in front of the meeting room. And we never did figure out who this guy was on the right. But we're assuming it was an early president or something like that from the fire company. It probably would be a good guess on that. But take a look at the furniture and, oh my word. Chandelier. Would have been originally a gas chandelier. Still hanging from the ceiling of that. And there's the president's chair. Now, I know Tom very, very well for many years. I got a chance to sit on that chair. Now, it cost me $20, but
How much to hit the gavel, Mike?
$5.
No, that's another $5.
So he cleaned me up pretty good. I didn't have much cash on me that day, but I just wanted the experience of that. But take a look at the ceilings. It's just a remarkable company with another unusual feature. Has anyone in your history or lifetime ever seen a round radiator? Round radiator with a marble top. I don't think they're getting that at Home Depot. Oh my word. To the right, the vice president's chair there, and you can see some of the meeting chairs in the back. Not easy to read, but original company charter on the wall, on the ceiling, since 1885. And the one on the right, Grand Army of the Republic. The charter for the Civil War soldiers from Schuylkill who met in the Phoenix. So, two incredible historical documents still hanging on the wall there in that fire company that they have preserved. Mike, you want to mention anything?
This is a remarkable story with this photograph. Go ahead, Mike.
Okay. January 1942, right after Pearl Harbor. Fortunately, there wasn't any snow on the ground that January. That's unusual for north of the mountain here. Decided before all the men went out to war, not knowing who would be coming home, gathered a picture of all the firemen, members of that fire company in uniform. I counted 109 members of the Phoenix in front of the fire company of 1942. Hey Tom, is Dad in there? No. Oh, okay, just checking on that, but incredible photo right there.
And think about it in these terms. They made this photograph January 1942. Very shortly, a large chunk of this membership shipped off to the armed services, not knowing who would or would not be coming back. So it was a very historically significant photograph to be made at that time, and in a way that you don't appreciate. It was a lot of forethought and a lot of foresight. To, hey, look, let's document this because we don't know what the next year, next 2 years, 3 are going to look like with this fire company.
Okay. And could we get lights on here first? Yep.
Question, Mike.
Yeah.
Did anybody ever do any research to see if collections did come back?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't think there was anybody killed in action.
Okay. Okay. You're not aware of any at this point. Okay, on that. We have one glass artifact to show you here. Now, the proper response is another ooh, ah on this.
This is actually really remarkable. We appreciate the Phoenix from Shenandoah. In addition to bringing their green KME pumper that's sitting out front, their speaking trumpet, which was typically used by the company officers to direct the troops on the scene. But the inscription is interesting. Phoenix Fire Company number 2, Shenandoah. From the Phoenix Fire Company number 2, Pottsville. April 30th, 1888. So that's
It's
different from
pure silver.
one Phoenix to another. One Irish fire company to another. So that's phenomenal. Yeah, big up. Thank you, fellas. Thanks.
Yeah. Folks, that was our program for you for this evening. I hope I met your expectations. And how about a special thanks for the members of the Phoenix Fire Company in Shenandoah.
Diana, do you have anything?
Sunday column.
I just want to thank everybody for coming. I hope you guys.
Okay, bar is open, folks. Okay.
Thank you.